For always there's the thrill of the flight and the excitement of nearing a new horizon. Out of the vast Pacific rises bright and busy Manila, a new world in what was once the island jungle of the Philippines.
For nearly 50 years, the story of Southeast Asia had a simple plot. There was the country everyone bet on, and the country everyone wrote off. In the 1960s, the smart money was on the Philippines. Manila had the universities, the American business ties, the English-speaking workforce, the second busiest international airport in the region. Economists genuinely believed it would be the next Japan. Vietnam, in those same years, was being torn apart by war. Today, look at what happened. In 2025, Vietnam's economy grew by 8%, its fastest pace in over a decade. The Philippines grew just 4.4% and slowed down every single quarter as the year went on. Two nations, roughly the same size economy, heading in opposite directions. So how did the country we wrote off become the one we can't stop talking about? And is the Philippines really losing this race, or is it quietly playing a completely different game? Before we crown anyone, we need to agree on what the crown actually is. The phrase tiger economy comes from a small group of Asian nations that did something the world had never seen. South Korea, Taiwan, Singapore, Hong Kong. In the space of a single generation, they went from poor and rural to rich and industrial. Not over a century, over about 30 years. They all shared the same DNA: explosive growth. Factories that exported to the entire planet. A middle class that ballooned almost overnight. Roads, ports, and power plants going up everywhere you looked. And global money pouring in. Because the whole world wanted a piece of it. For decades, no one in Southeast Asia could repeat the trick. Then, suddenly, two countries started looking like they might. And they could not be more different. One is trying to become a tiger by building the world's factories. The other is trying to become a tiger without building factories at all. To see why, you have to look at the numbers. And the numbers are brutal. Let's start with Vietnam, because Vietnam is the story everyone is chasing. In 2025, Vietnam's economy grew 8.02%, its strongest performance since 2011. And it didn't limp to that number, it accelerated into it. The final quarter of the year grew at 8.46%, the fastest three-month stretch the country had seen in 15 years. The total economy crossed $514 billion. Foreign companies poured in over $38 billion in investment commitments. And total trade, everything Vietnam bought and sold with the world, blew past $930 billion in a single year. For a country of 102 million people, that is a staggering amount of commerce. Now the Philippines. In 2025, the Philippine economy grew 4.4%. On its own, that's not a disaster. Plenty of countries would take it. But it missed the government's own target of 5.5% to 6.5%. And the trend underneath it is what worries economists. Because growth didn't hold steady. It faded. The third quarter came in at 4.4%. The fourth quarter dropped to 3%. And by the first quarter of 2026, growth had fallen to just 2.8%, the weakest number in the entire region.
Can you get GDP back above 6%?
Yes, we believe we can.
So in the exact same year, one economy hit its highest gear in over a decade, and the other slipped into its lowest gear since the pandemic. Here's the strange part. This wasn't always the gap. Rewind a few years, and these two were neck and neck. So what did Vietnam build that the Philippines didn't? And why did it work so fast? If you want to understand Vietnam's rise, forget politics for a second and think about timing. Vietnam read the future of globalization earlier than almost anyone in the region, and it built its whole economy around one bet. The bet was this: become the place the world moves to when it wants to leave China. For years, multinational companies built everything in China. Then came rising wages, then trade wars, then tariffs, then the shock of supply chains snapping during the pandemic. Suddenly, every big company had the same nervous thought: we cannot keep all our eggs in one country. They needed a second home, a plus one.
It's all about not putting all your eggs in one basket. It's about having China still as a very strong part of the value chain, but it's about not being completely entirely dependent on China.
And Vietnam had spent years making itself the obvious answer. Look at who showed up. Samsung now makes a huge share of its smartphones in Vietnam. Foxconn, the company that assembles iPhones, expanded there. Intel built one of its largest chip assembly and testing sites in the country. Where the giants of electronics went, thousands of smaller suppliers followed. And this is the crucial part. In 2025, foreign invested companies accounted for over 77% of Vietnam's exports. The country didn't just attract a few factories. It became the assembly floor for some of the most valuable products on Earth. But factories alone don't explain it. 3 other things made the machine run. First, a government with a plan it actually stuck to. Vietnam built industrial parks, deep water ports, export zones, and logistics corridors with a single-minded focus. One-party rule has real costs, but it gave Vietnam something messy democracies struggle with: the ability to commit to a 30-year plan and not change course every election. Second, trade deals. Lots of them. Vietnam signed up to the biggest agreements going, the RCEP, and a free trade deal with the European Union. Each one knocked down tariffs and gave Vietnamese factories preferential access to billions of consumers. For an export economy, that's rocket fuel. Third, strategic neutrality. Vietnam plays everyone at once. It trades with the United States, depends on China for components, takes investment from Japan and South Korea, and refuses to fully join anyone's camp. That balancing act makes investors comfortable. They see stability, not drama. Put it together, and you get a country that, even when the US slapped a 20% tariff on its goods in 2025, still grew at 8% anyway. It sounds unstoppable. A perfect machine. But every machine has a weak point, and Vietnam's is hiding inside that very success. Hold that thought, because first we need to meet the challenger that refuses to play the same game. Here's where most people get the story wrong. They look at Vietnam's factories and the Philippines' slower growth and conclude the Philippines simply failed. It didn't fail. It chose a different road. While Vietnam bet on factories, the Philippines bet on people. And it built an economy that runs on 3 engines you can't photograph from a satellite. Engine 1, demographics. This is Manila's long-term superweapon. The Philippines has over 115 million people, and it is young. The median Filipino is significantly younger than the median Vietnamese, and Filipino families are still having far more children, around 22 births per 1,000 people against Vietnam's 15. While much of East Asia is aging and shrinking, the Philippines still has decades of new workers and new consumers coming. Engine 2, the voice on the other end of the line. You have almost certainly spoken to the Philippine economy without knowing it. When you call customer support for a global bank, an airline, a tech company, there's a strong chance you're talking to someone in Manila or Cebu. The Philippines is the call center and outsourcing capital of the world. That sector, known as BPO, earned around $38 billion and employed roughly 1.8 million Filipinos heading into 2025. And it kept climbing toward the 40 billion mark. That's about 8 to 9% of the entire economy, built on English fluency and a culture that meshes easily with Western clients. Engine 3, the money sent home. Over 2 million Filipinos work abroad. Nurses, sailors, engineers, domestic workers, and they send money home. In 2025, those remittances hit an all-time record of $35.6 billion in cash, more than 7% of the entire economy. That's a river of dollars flowing into Filipino households every single month, no matter what the factories of the world are doing. And there's a fourth piece Manila is racing to fix: infrastructure. The Build Better More program is pouring money into railways, ports, and airports, trying to repair the bad roads and unreliable power that scared away factories for decades. So we have 2 completely different machines: a factory nation and a people nation. Which raises the question that should have been obvious from the start. If the Philippines started out ahead, How did it ever fall behind in the first place? Let's go back to that reversal from the opening, because it's one of the great upsets in modern economic history. In the 1960s, the Philippines was richer than South Korea. Vietnam was a war zone. If you had said back then that Vietnam would one day outproduce and out-export the Philippines, people would have laughed. 4 things flipped the script. The first was discipline. Vietnam picked a strategy, manufacturing and exports, and pursued it relentlessly for 30 years without blinking. The Philippines changed economic direction again and again as governments came and went. The second was concrete. Vietnam built its ports and industrial zones faster and cheaper. When a company wanted to open a factory, Vietnam had the land, the power, and the shipping ready to go. In the Philippines, unreliable electricity and clogged ports made manufacturing a headache. The third was continuity. Vietnam's one-party system, for all its flaws, let it plan across decades. The Philippines' louder, more democratic politics often meant projects stalled, priorities shifted, and powerful families guarded their own interests. The fourth was schooling matched to work. Vietnam pushed technical and engineering education aimed squarely at what its factories needed. The Philippines produced brilliant English speakers and service workers, perfect for call centers, less suited to running semiconductor lines. None of these were accidents. They were choices made over decades by both countries, which makes Vietnam look like the clear winner. Smarter choices, faster execution, runaway growth. But now we get to that weak point I promised you. And once you see it, the whole race looks different. Vietnam's greatest strength and its greatest weakness are the same fact. It grew rich by building other people's products. The question is whether it owns any of it. Remember that number, over 77% of Vietnam's exports come from foreign-owned companies. Samsung's phones, Apple's suppliers, Intel's chips. Vietnam supplies the land, the workers, and the assembly. But the brands, the technology, the patents, and most of the profit belong to companies headquartered somewhere else. That means if those companies ever decide to move again, to India, to Indonesia, to Mexico, a huge chunk of Vietnam's economy could walk out the door. The factories are guests, not owners. Then there's the dependence on global demand. Vietnam relies enormously on selling to the United States and on importing parts from China. When the US imposed a 20% tariff in 2025, Vietnam absorbed it. This time, but it's a reminder that its prosperity rests on decisions made in Washington and Beijing, not Hanoi. Economists have a name for the deepest danger, the middle income trap. It's the wall that stops assembly economies from becoming innovation economies. It's easy to get rich screwing together other people's designs. It is brutally hard to start designing your own. Most countries that try, fail, and there are flashing lights at home too. A property market and a credit system that have expanded fast. The kind of rapid growth that has caused bubbles in other Asian economies before. So Vietnam's lead is real, but it's rented, not owned. Which brings us back to the Philippines and a set of advantages that look small today but might matter enormously tomorrow. The Philippines is holding a few cards that don't show up in this year's growth number, but could decide the next decade. The first is that it isn't addicted to exports. Vietnam lives and dies by global trade. The Philippine economy runs mostly on its own people spending money at home, topped up by that steady river of remittances. When the world economy catches a cold, Vietnam sneezes hard, the Philippines is more insulated. In a turbulent world, boring and stable has value. The second card is the English language and the timing of artificial intelligence. The Philippines built its fortune on English-speaking service work. Now the entire global economy is shifting toward digital services, remote work, and AI-assisted support. Exactly the arena where a young, English-fluent, digitally connected workforce could thrive. The skill that built the call centers might build whatever comes after them. The third card is geography, and this is where your channel's world comes in. The Philippines sits in the single most contested stretch of water on the planet. It guards the South China Sea trade lanes. It sits on the first island chain, right next to Taiwan. And as US-China rivalry sharpens, Washington, Tokyo, and Canberra increasingly see Manila not just as an ally, but as a place to invest, build, and secure. Here's the modern twist. Strategic investment now pulls economic investment behind it. Defense partnerships, semiconductor plans, infrastructure money, they increasingly flow toward the country that matters militarily. And few countries matter more right now than the Philippines. Vietnam has the factories. The Philippines has the location the whole world suddenly cares about. So after all of this, who actually wins the next 10 years? Here's the honest answer, and it's more interesting than picking a name. They may both win, at completely different games. Vietnam is almost certain to keep leading in manufacturing, exports, and industrial muscle. If your measure of victory is factories, trade volume, and raw output, Vietnam is the tiger, already roaring and not slowing down. But the Philippines could win a different prize. A young population still growing while its neighbors gray. A services and digital economy suited to the AI age. Deepening alliances with the most powerful nations on Earth. And a home market big enough to keep growing even when the world doesn't. Step back far enough and you realize something about Southeast Asia itself. It may be splitting into two kinds of economies, the factory nations that make the world's things and the service nations that handle the world's work. Vietnam and the Philippines aren't just two countries. They're two entire theories of how a nation gets rich in the 21st century. And the most important question isn't which theory wins. It's whether the fractured, dangerous, fast-changing Indo-Pacific might end up needing both. So let's return to where we started, that great reversal, the favorite and the underdog trading places. Because the real race was never just about which economy's number is bigger this year. It's about who controls the supply chains the world depends on, who attracts the global money, who builds institutions strong enough to survive their own success, and who adapts fastest as the old order cracks apart. Right now, Vietnam looks like ASEAN rising factory superpower, fast, focused, and impossible to ignore. But quietly, the Philippines is positioning itself for a different kind of future, built on its people, its language, its location, and its alliances. One nation is building the things the world buys. The other is positioning itself at the exact spot where the world's future will be decided. The next decade won't just reveal which of them becomes ASEAN next tiger. It will reveal what a tiger even looks like in a world that's being rebuilt in real time. Two countries, two bets, one ocean caught in the middle. If this breakdown helped you see the Indo-Pacific a little differently, tell me in the comments, whose bet would you back, the factory or the people? And subscribe to the Indo-Pacific Report, because this race is only getting started.